Welcome back, everybody. I am Ian Group, aka Ian Builds Wealth, and we've got an interesting topic today. $1 million. Everyone has that as their benchmark, but is it really enough? I don't think so. I do not think $1 million is enough for retirement, and we're going to talk today about why. In order to figure out how much is enough for retirement, we've got to start with our spending. So how much are you spending every month, every year? Well, on average, consumers in the United States spend around $60,000 a year. So let's just say that's $5,000 a month. To me, that sounds a little too low. I live in a higher cost of living area, and I used to live in New York City where $5,000 was definitely not enough, but we're going to use some averages because a very quick way to figure out what you need to retire is called the 4% rule. So let's talk about the 4% rule. It's basically a quick way to figure out how much money you will need over 30 years if in every year you withdrew 4%. And the easy way to figure that out, take your annual expenses and multiply it by 25. This is going to give you that amount that you will have over 30 years to retire on while withdrawing 4% every year for your annual or monthly expenses. So in the example that I gave you with the national averages, if we spend $60,000 a year, 60 times 25 is 1.5 million. So already with pretty modest numbers, $1 million is not enough. Now we could live in lower cost of living areas, but I'm going to walk you through 4 things that you need to consider in order to best plan how much money you will need to retire. Factor number 1 is the age at which you plan to retire. The 4% rule only works for 30 years. Some experts say that 4% is not even enough. But the point is, if you want to retire earlier than 60 or 65, you're going to need a lot more money to last you longer. Here's an example. If you are 30 years old, you're making $100,000 a year and you've got $500,000 already saved, which is a pretty good scenario, right? If I wanted to, at that 30 years old, retire by the time I'm 50, so 20 years, to sustain my lifestyle, I would need about $3+ million in order to retire. But given the amount that I'm making and the amount that I'm investing, I would pretty much only get to 2 million. And so even in a scenario where I've got a lot of money saved up, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can retire at an early age. You really need to factor in how much you are making and when you want to retire. Factor number 2, the cost of living. Experts say you'll spend 20 to 25% less in retirement. Maybe you don't have a home payment anymore. You've paid off your house. You don't have kids at home anymore, and you're not spending your money saving for retirement every month. I know when I retire, I'm going to want to travel. I'm going to want to take a luxury trip to the Amalfi Coast. I don't know, maybe to Disney World. But point is, that all gets really expensive. It adds up. And do you think you're going to fly business class or have some luxury trip on a $60,000 a year budget? Probably not. Maybe if you're savvy with credit card points, but it's going to get pretty tight pretty quickly. And as a result, based on your cost of living, you might still need to budget and watch how you're spending in your retirement years. The next factor to consider, old age. I'm not talking about retirement age. I'm talking like 80s, 90s. We're all living a lot longer. The cost for old age is absolutely incredible. The average cost for a home health aide is $60,000 a year. So if you want to stay home and have somebody help you because you can't go to the bathroom by yourself, $60,000 a year. The average cost for a room at a nursing home, over $100,000 a year. The 4% rule presumes that we're taking out a fixed amount every month. It doesn't presume that your costs could go up. And that's another reason why $1 million just isn't enough money for retirement. And the last factor to consider here is investments and income. The 4% rule assumes that your money is invested in stocks and bonds, conservatively invested. But at what point do you stop striving for yield? If you're investing your money in the S&P 500, on average, you're going to get 7%. So if your strategy is low-cost index funds over time, when does that strategy end so that your money is there a little bit more conservatively? Your money is eventually going to stop growing at the rate it's growing right now if you're building that retirement. And you have to really factor that into the whole equation here. At some point, your money's going to stop growing and you need to put it into preservation mode. And this is where income can play a really important role in your retirement. For example, if you're 35 years old, you've got 3 investment properties, $1 million might be enough money for you in retirement. You know why? You've got income coming off of those properties, plus they're appreciating in value. Another thing is part-time work, simply working a job at a coffee shop or scooping some ice cream. Who doesn't love ice cream? Consulting, coaching, handyman work. These are things that can keep you busy in your retirement, but also bring in some money to offset all of those costs that I was just talking about. So one last thing before we go here, gotta throw some real life scenarios at you. Let's do a hypothetical. So let's say you're 30 years old and you want to retire by 60. You know you need $2 million to retire. How do you get there? Well, if I crunch some numbers in my head, just kidding, I used the compounding interest calculator, you'll need about $1,800 per month invested at a 7% rate of return for all of those 30 years to get to about $2 million. So if we take $1,800 a month, multiply that by 12, we're at $21,600 per year. So how do we structure all this? What do we do? Well, one option is to use retirement accounts, Roth IRA and a 401k. So if we max the 401k and the Roth, which maxes at $6,000 and $19,500 respectively, we're going to hit that goal every single year. So max those 2 accounts and you are made in the shade. What if you don't have an employer that offers a 401k? Well, still max the Roth, and you could put the remainder of that $21,600 in a taxable brokerage account. In either scenario, sprinkle on a little side hustle, maybe some investments that are yielding some income, and you are going to be set for retirement in that scenario. Maybe you're going to take some luxury vacations, maybe an all-inclusive cruise or a trip to Disney. I don't know, but follow that path. You're going to crush it. Remember all the factors that we talked about today. They're really important in considering what you need to retire, and especially start to think about how much income you're going to need, because from there you can use the 4% rule to work backwards and figure out exactly how much money you're going to need in retirement. I'm Ian Group. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please let me know below. Leave a review, subscribe, do all the things. Find me on the socials. I really appreciate you being here. And remember, smart decisions you make today, like watching my videos, are going to make you rich tomorrow. See ya.